Hello, I hope you're having a good day. This video is going to teach us about the different oceans on our planet, and we'll also go over a little bit of basic geography. Okay, so this map is showing Earth's oceans. So we have, starting in the north, we have the Arctic Ocean, and then we have the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, the Indian Ocean, and the Southern Ocean. So let's talk about each one of these oceans, starting with our closest ocean, the Pacific Ocean. The Pacific Ocean is the largest and deepest ocean in the world, and it covers about a third of the Earth's surface. And like I told you guys previously, if you took all of the world's continents and put them together, you could fit them into the Pacific Ocean. That's how big the Pacific Ocean is. Surrounding the Pacific Ocean are mountainous regions, and also dotted throughout the Pacific oceans are lots of volcanic islands. Also, the mountainous regions also have volcanoes as well on the continents. And this is due to the tectonic activity around the Pacific Ocean, which we're going to get to in a lecture soon. Then we have the Atlantic Ocean, which is on the other side of our continent. So on the east coast of the United States, their ocean that's closest by is the Atlantic Ocean. The Atlantic Ocean is the second largest ocean in the world. It's about half of the size of the Pacific Ocean, though. It's made up of many shallow and semi-isolated seas. For example, the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean Sea, or the Mediterranean Sea are all connected to the Atlantic Ocean. Additionally, there are lots of rivers that drain into the Atlantic Ocean, such as the Amazon or the Congo. So the Atlantic Ocean has areas where a large amount of fresh water is moving into the ocean. And so if you went around those rivers, you would see that the ocean was fresher around those areas. So that contributes to the salinity of the Atlantic Ocean. Then we have the Indian Ocean. The Indian Ocean is almost as big as the Atlantic Ocean, just a slight bit smaller, but it's not as deep as the Atlantic Ocean. And it's mostly found in the southern hemisphere. That means it is south of the equator. It is surrounded by land and most affected by the nearby land as compared to the other oceans. And it has a lot of river discharge, which brings fresh water and also brings sediments into the Indian Ocean to accumulate on the bottom of the Indian Ocean. Additionally, there are very salty seas that surround the Indian Ocean, such as the Red Sea or the Arabian Gulf. And so this very salty water is denser than the surface waters of the Indian Ocean. And so the Red Sea, let me show you where that is. The Red Sea, which is this ocean, the sea right here, it empties into the Indian Ocean. And so this water is very salty. So it's denser than the surface water of the Indian Ocean. So it will actually, as it enters in, it doesn't enter in at the surface, it actually enters in deeper. So that's the term subsurface right here. It brings in warm saline subsurface waters. Okay, same thing with the Arabian Gulf up here. Then we have the Arctic Ocean, which is the ocean that surrounds the North Pole. It's relatively shallow, only on average being about 1,000 meters deep, and it is characterized by being covered by a layer of sea ice. So in the summertime, it's covered by about 40% ice, although it used to be covered by about 80% in the summer, but due to climate change and global warming, we're seeing a very rapid decrease in the amount of sea ice in the Arctic Ocean. In the winter, it tends to be covered by about 90% ice. And traditionally, the only direct connection to the other oceans was to the Atlantic Ocean through the Fram Strait, which is between Greenland and Norway. So here's Greenland and Norway over here. So this area right here used to be the only direct passage, but now we have direct passage, at least in the summertime, right through here, and also right through here. So we'll see how that kind of changes our oceans as the Arctic Ocean becomes more connected to the other ones. And then finally, we have the Antarctic or the Southern Ocean. This is the body of water that surrounds Antarctica and is south of 50 degrees south latitude. It's the coldest water and also the most dense water. And so we will eventually talk about ocean circulation. And when we talk about ocean circulation, we'll learn about how the sinking of very dense water around the Southern Ocean contributes to the actual movement of all of our water in the oceans. There is, like the Arctic Ocean, seasonal changes in the amount of sea ice. So in the winter time, you have sea ice forming and extending from Antarctica, and in the summertime, it melts. Now, I want to point out that in the Arctic Ocean does not surround land. There is no land around the North Pole. However, the Southern Ocean surrounds the Antarctic continent, so there is land around the South Pole. Okay, so let's compare the depths of the ocean to the heights of our continents. So how does the depth of the oceans compare to the altitude of the continents? The average depth of the oceans is about 3,729 meters, whereas the average height of the continents is only 840 meters. And so you can see in this little visual depiction, this is the average depth of the oceans, whereas this is the average height of the continents or of land. Okay, so just from looking at that, we can see that the oceans are generally deeper than the continents are tall. The deepest spot in the ocean in the Marianas Trench is about 11,022 meters. So compare that to the tallest spot on Earth, which is Mount Everest, at 8,850 meters. And we still see that the deepest part of the ocean is still deeper than the tallest mountain on land. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about some basic geography stuff. And before I start, I do want to say that you should be able to label a map with all of the world's oceans. That should be something that if you can't do right now, you should go and study that right now. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how we break down the planet into specific places and how we organize it. Okay, so latitude and longitude help us to organize our planet and quickly reference locations. Latitude and longitude was originally invented by Eratosthenes, who was the second librarian of the Library of Alexandria, all the way back in, I believe it's the 2nd century, the BCE. So long, long time ago, right? So basically, he did this by figuring out the distance between two cities, and then during the summer solstice, he measured the angles that were made by the sun on different buildings, and he was able to figure out the circumference of the Earth in that way. So the Earth is a little bit over 40,000 kilometers around at the center part of the equator. And so Eratosthenes was able to figure that out and create this grid system. Now, his estimates were not perfect, so they were later improved by another librarian of Alexandria. His name was Hipparchus. Okay, so that right there should show you that all the way back in the time of the Library of Alexandria, that we knew that the Earth was round. So this whole idea that the explorers proved that the Earth was round is not really accurate. All right, so let's look at latitude and longitude and learn what those mean. All right, so here is our planet, and we see these kind of grid system we have created here. These lines represent lines of latitude and lines of longitude. So lines of latitude are horizontal lines. So our 0 line of latitude is called the equator. So the equator is said to be at 0 degrees. Anything north of the equator is in the northern hemisphere, and anything south of the equator is in the southern hemisphere. Okay, so essentially the equator splits our world into north and south. Okay, so the anything that is degrees north would be written as degrees N for north. Anything degrees south will be written as degrees S or degrees south. Okay, and that goes from the equator 0 degrees to 90 degrees north, and from the equator again 0 degrees to 90 degrees south. Then longitude are the horizontal lines. So the 0 degree longitude line is called the prime meridian. And where this prime meridian was has changed in history, but it eventually ended up being a line that goes through Greenwich, England, and it goes through Africa as well, the African continent. So anything that is to the east of the prime meridian would be called degrees east, and anything that is to the west would be called degrees west. So with starting at 0 degrees going east, we have 0 degrees east, 0 degrees to 180 degrees east. And going from 0 degrees to the west, we have 0 degrees going to 180 degrees west. Okay, so these are all lines of latitude. They're the horizontal lines, and no matter where you are on the planet, they will always be the same distance apart, right? So here we have the equator, 0 degrees latitude. Here we have 15 degrees north, 30 degrees north, 45 degrees north, 60 degrees north, 75 degrees north, and 90 degrees north. Okay, so that whole line right there would be called 90 degrees north latitude. This whole line right here, everything along that line, is at 75 degrees north latitude. And then when we go south, we can see 15 degrees south. So everything along that line would be 15 degrees south, 30 degrees south, 45 degrees south, 60 degrees south, 75 degrees south, and 90 degrees south. Now, just because this map is only showing you in 15-degree increments doesn't mean that there are not lines in between. It's just to show the whole world. You're not going to put tons of lines on the map, okay? But when we do our problems with navigation, you guys will be doing it on a much smaller scale. So we'll actually be doing it all the way to from degrees to minutes and then to seconds. So these are lines of longitude. Okay, so we would read lines of longitude by going to the numbers that are on the bottom or the numbers that are on the top of the map. Okay, and then following them down. So here we have 30 degrees west, 60 degrees west, 90 degrees west, 120 degrees west, 150, 180 degrees west. Here we have 30 degrees east, 60 degrees east, 90 degrees east, 120 degrees east, 150 degrees east, 180 degrees east. Okay, so along that whole line there is 90 degrees east, right? And along this whole line here is 90 degrees west. Okay, so with latitude, the degrees are basically measured by taking the very center of the Earth, drawing a line out to the equator, and then drawing a line from the center of the Earth to that location. And the angle between those two lines is the degree for each of them. Okay, so this angle right here is 60 degrees. So this line of latitude is 60 degrees. And for longitude, it's done the same way, but in the opposite direction. So we start out in the very center of the Earth. We draw a line out from the center of the Earth to our prime meridian, or our 0 degree longitude line. And then we would go back to that original spot in the very center of Earth and draw a line out to our location. In this case, the angle between those two lines is 60 degrees, and it's 60 degrees west. 60 degrees west of the prime meridian. Okay. Now, as you go along lines of latitude, no matter what your longitude is, the distance between two lines of latitude will always be the same. However, with lines of longitude, that distance changes depending on what your latitude is. So it'll be the greatest distance at the equator. And as you move north or you move south of the equator, the distance between two lines will gradually get smaller and smaller. And the smallest once you get to the North Pole. Basically, those lines meet in the North Pole, and that's why that happens that way. Okay, so we are here, shown by this arrow here. There's Pleasant Hill. The reading would be 37 degrees, 58 minutes, 04 seconds north. Okay, so degrees, then we get a little more specific with minutes, and then more specific with seconds. Okay, so there are 60 seconds in a minute. There are 60 minutes in 1 degree. All right, so 37 degrees, 58 minutes, 04 seconds north, and 122 degrees, 04 minutes, 26 seconds west. So which series of numbers is the latitude? If you said 37 degrees, 58 minutes, 04 seconds north, then you would be correct, right? If it says north or south, those are lines of latitude, right? Anything that is north of the equator are degrees north. Anything that is south of the equator are degrees south. And then this one right here, 122 degrees, 4 minutes, 26 seconds west, is telling us that we are 122 degrees west of the prime meridian. Okay, so that's us right there. So let's do a little practice here. So my location is 60 degrees north, 30 degrees east. Where am I? So first you have to figure out what is 60 degrees north. Where do I find that number on this map? Is that a line of latitude or is that a line of longitude? Okay, so you should have said that that is a line of latitude. Lines of latitude are horizontal lines, okay? So these lines that go across, and they're red on the right or on the left side of the map here. Okay, so 60 degrees north is right here, this line, or right here, 60 degrees. This whole line right here is 60 degrees, and it's north of the equator. That's why we didn't select this one down here, because if it had said 60 degrees south, then we would have selected this one, but it says 60 degrees N, which is north, so that's north of the equator. So we are somewhere along this line of latitude, okay? Then we look to the longitude, and it says it's 30 degrees east, okay? So is it this one, or is it this one? This one is degrees west. This one is degrees east. Okay, so we are somewhere along 30-degree longitude line, which is this line that I'm trying to trace here with my cursor. Okay, so we're somewhere along that line, and we got the information that we're at 60 degrees north latitude, so we know that we're at the location where those two lines meet. So it's that spot right there, and I think that that is St. Petersburg, Russia. Okay, so for your assignment this week, in addition to just posting a question or a comment under the discussion for the week, you're also going to do a geography assignment in which you label a map with different locations. And I give you the latitude and longitude of the locations for you to do what we just did today. So you should follow those same steps with each of the latitudes and longitudes that are given to you. Now, if you have trouble doing this on a computer, it's fine to print it out and do it by hand, and then scan it or take a picture of it and save it to your computer and then upload it to the assignment on Canvas. Okay? Please let me know if you are having trouble with that, and I can help to walk you through that. Okay? So when you're done with that assignment, you're going to post it on Canvas. There will be an assignment area for you to do that. So click on that assignment, then it'll say upload document. You upload your document there. All right? And again, ask me if you have any questions. Okay? Again, if you have questions on this video or any other videos, please post them under the weekly discussions. And please post at least one question or comment or answer somebody else's question under the weekly discussion for this week. Okay? Thank you.